The two witnesses. Okay, guys, we're very, very excited to share this message with you. I encourage you guys to watch the videos. I'm going to put links in the description field for some things that we've already talked about. If you're new to the channel, you may not have watched some of the previous videos. We've already talked about the two witnesses as they relate to the two staffs. This you see in Zechariah chapter 11. We talked about the two staffs, and we went over that when I was in North Carolina in America. And there was a rock that looked just like Mount Horeb. It was amazing, amazing time. So watch that video. As well, watch the video on the 1,335th day. Guys, these messages are very short. You know, don't be complaining, oh, you don't have time and all this stuff. Watch the videos. That video is 6 minutes. You don't have 6 minutes? Watch the video. I have to go through these things very, very quickly because you have no attention span. And I have a lot of material to go over, many of which in this material we have already talked about. So that's why I'm going to encourage you to watch some of these previous videos. Now, before we get into it, the two witnesses, read Revelation 11. I encourage you to pause this video, please. Read Revelation chapter 11 in its entirety. We're going to go over the details in this presentation, but as the two witnesses are a very, very popular topic, we're not going to so much get into some other aspects of the staff and some other things. Are they Moses? Are they Elijah? We're going to talk about them in this video. They are Zerubbabel and Joshua. We're also going to talk about them as the two olive trees. So, please read Revelation 11. Now, let's get right into it and get these notes as well. I'm going to, make these available. Please get this. Download it. It's a PDF. Actually, this one, part of the time I post it, will be just a single page, which is a JPEG, and then you can see it on your tablet or your phone, whatever. Get these notes and read this. Study this stuff. This, guys, the reason I do all this stuff is for you to study. I could go over just one topic and talk about it for an hour, but I don't have the time. I have to go over all this information. Now, Revelation 11:4. These are the two olive trees, the two candlesticks, standing before the God of the whole earth. Okay, we have two olive trees, two candlesticks. In the picture I'm going to put on this video, guys, here in Ethiopia, there are, I think it's about 900-year-old olive trees. I forget how many there are. I have two of them. That's what you're looking at in the amazing hundreds and hundreds, 900 years old olive trees. Glory to God. The two olive trees standing before the God of the whole earth. Now, the two candlesticks are not a single candle. Okay, obviously it's a menorah. A candlestick is a menorah. All right. Now, this description of two olive trees and candlesticks we do find in Zechariah chapter 4. Zechariah chapter 4, verse 2. A candlestick all of gold with a bowl on top. It had 7 pipes to 7 lamps, and 2 olive trees to the right and left of the bowl. Okay, Zechariah chapter 4, we have this description. All right, now, we're going to look at this here and go over the particulars of this description in Zechariah. It's very important. But the first thing we want to look at is the bowl. We learned the bowl are the temple vessels, right? We also learned that there's golden bowls that are poured out for offerings in the 7 veils or 7 bowls in Revelation. Now, this bowl in Hebrew refers to the 2 capitors. Now, there were 2 pillars in the temple, Jachin and Boaz. On the top of those 2 pillars were 2 bowls or capitors, right? And they were ornate with buds and different things. But those 2 bowls is the same exact Hebrew word for bowls here in Zechariah 4, making a clear reference to the bowls in the 2 pillars are also people in the other 2 witnesses. Okay? You can find that in 1 Kings 7, 41 and 42. Now, Zechariah asks, what are these 2 olive branches which feed 2 golden pipes and empty the golden oil? Okay, we have a lot of 2 here and a lot of golden things, right? Now, let's take a look at it. I'm going to bring the camera so you can, we'll go over the details of what this is describing. Okay, here we go, guys. We have 2 olive trees, right? 2 olive trees. Zechariah asks, who are these 2 olive trees? And it says, what are these 2 olive branches? Okay?
And then it says these branches which feed 2 golden pipes and empty the golden oil. And they empty the golden oil into the golden bowl. So we have 2 trees, which are the 2 witnesses from Revelation. But there are 2 branches. You can see we have our golden pipes, okay, coming off branches. 2 branches, right? Which feed the golden oil. Now, the golden oil here is pure oil that they had to use. It says that in Exodus. But the golden oil goes into these bowls, okay? And then we saw as well, this page keeps moving, that the candlestick of gold, and this golden candlestick is important. It represents the 7 spirits of God, which we'll see shortly. And it has 7 pipes to the 7 lamps. So the bowl then feeds 7 pipes to the lamps, and the oil to this menorah. Okay? Now, so we have 2 olive trees, right? With 2 branches. 2 branches have 2 pipes. The 2 pipes feed the golden boil, which then feed the 7 lamps through 7 pipes. Okay, you see that? Guys, the reason I'm going through this, it says clearly, Zechariah 4:14, these are the 2 anointed ones. And ones there is Ben, sons, that stand before the Lord of the whole earth. That's the same exact description we had. 2 witnesses. They prophesied 1,206 days. These are the 2 olive trees, the 2 candlesticks, menorahs, standing before the God of the whole earth.
Okay, so there. We have this description. Again, I encourage you to get these notes. Now, another thing I want to mention, now I'm emphasizing all this description, guys, of this olive tree and the 2 branches, the 2 pipes, the bowl. I'm doing all this for a reason, okay? Now, I'm going to get into that in a second. Before I do, I want to read to you Jeremiah 11, verse 16. And Jeremiah 11, verse 16, it gives us a little glimpse of the ministry of the 2 witnesses. Verse 16, the Lord called your name a green olive tree, fair and goodly fruit, with the noise of a great tumult. He has kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. We know the 2 witnesses will be broken. Now, here's their ministry. For the Lord of hosts has planted a tree. He has pronounced evil against you, and evil of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, which they have done against themselves, to provoke me, this is to provoke the Lord to anger, and offering incense to Baal. Guys, the 2 witnesses are going to prove, just like Elijah, the difference between those that are worshiping Baal and the worshiping Yahweh, the Most High God. Okay? Very clearly we see that in Jeremiah 11. So we have Revelation 11. We have Zechariah 11. And Jeremiah 11. Now, the reason I went through this description here of 2 olive trees feeding the bowl is we clearly have a reference here, guys, to the parable of the virgins. The parable of the virgins, let's remember there were 10 virgins. 5 were wise, 5 were foolish. Okay? Now, the wise had oil in their vessels. Okay? So just like we had the golden bowl and we had golden oil, right? We know that the oil is precious. It's expensive. It's the alabaster box. And the oil comes from intimacy with the Lord. So we had a bowl. The oil goes into the bowl. The bowl filled the lamps, right? We just saw that. Well, that's the same thing we have as a description in Matthew 25. We have the wise virgins. They have vessels which hold the oil. Okay? They must have enough oil to run to see the bridegroom. Okay? So the vessels hold the oil. The oil feeds the lamps, and the lamps must be burning because, run, behold, your bridegroom comes. So, 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish, right? They have vessels which hold the oil, clearly, just like the 2 witnesses with this description. Now, I also want to mention to you, in the first temple, when they also had 10 menorahs, 5 on the right, 5 on the left. Clearly a type and shadow. The reason I'm going through all of this, the emphasis on this menorah is it's clearly the same thing. 2 witnesses feeding the menorah, 7 spirits of God. Also, 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish, just like in the first temple. 5 on the right, 5 on the left. Okay, all these are types and shadows of these people, of the coming of the Lord. So we spent all that time to describe this to you. Now let's get into Zerubbabel and Joshua. Now I'm going to go through this very quickly, guys. That's why I encourage you to get these notes. Please study this. Please read this. If I were to do this one topic, I could do this in about 4 or 5 videos. I could go on and on. I don't have the time. I'm giving this to those that you that are wise, that will study this to see if these things are not so. Zerubbabel and Joshua are clearly types and shadows of the 2 witnesses. Read about them in Zechariah 4, Zechariah 3. In fact, pause the video, please read Zechariah 3 and 4. Read about that. I can't read the whole thing. Ezra chapters 2 through 5. Nehemiah 12. Haggai chapter 1 and 2. So that's all the chapters in the book of Haggai. These 2, Zerubbabel and Joshua, and the remnant did work in the house of the Lord. You see this in Ezra 3:8, 4:3, and Haggai chapter 1, verse 14. Okay? These are the only ones building the house of the Lord. Everyone else is doing their own thing. They first, and we also know, guys, that the remnant, we've numbered the remnant. We've numbered the man-child. The man-child is also the 2 witnesses with the rod of iron, right? Remember, they had the rod of iron ruling the nation. That's clearly what you see the 2 witnesses doing as well, okay? And we know the remnant. We've numbered the remnant. Remember the remnant according to the house of David. Right now it's 290,640. But at the time of the Son of Man, the rewards will go to 145,327. You know what I'm talking about? Go over the videos. They first build or measure the altar. All right, let's talk about this. It is necessary. Remember, John is given a rod to measure the temple, measure the altar, and those that worship therein. Okay? It is necessary to measure the altar, measure the temple before the 2 witnesses. Why? Because you're measuring a people. Now, when you measure the temple, there's 2 walls. There's one wall on the outside of the temple. There's another wall that's much farther out. Okay? This we see clearly in Ezekiel's temple, also in New Jerusalem. So in New Jerusalem, it gives us the measurement. It's 144 cubits, 144 people. We have that. Please watch the other video. We have measured the inner court. Okay? And he said, measure not the outer court, for it is given to the Gentiles. So, outer court is not yet measurable at the time, just before the 2 witnesses begin their ministry. All right. So, measure the altar and those that worship therein. We know that the measuring of the altar is the martyrs on the 5th seal. The souls that cry out for the witness. It's the 5th seal. Those are that worship. And they said, Lord, when are you going to avenge our blood? Not until your fair servants be fulfilled. So we learn through the shekel of the sanctuary is 266 talents of gold. That's over 13 million people will be martyred. Those are those measuring the altar, okay? And the inner court, that's 144 cubits. That would also give us the information on the man-child, on the 144,000. They are all part of that inner court and the altar, okay? And Zerubbabel and Joshua also do the same. They build the altar first. Zechariah 3, verses 2 and 3. The altar is first. The Jews are going to do the same thing. We talked about it as the daily sacrifice. They're going to build the altar first before they build the 3rd temple. And they build the wall. Okay, next thing that Ezra Zerubbabel do in Ezra 5:3, they build the wall. And again, we measured the wall, and the wall is the inner court. Okay, 144 cubits. Watch the other video on that. The foundation of the Lord's house was laid in Ezra 3:11. Also Zechariah 4:9. Zerubbabel and Joshua are to build the Lord's house. Now the 2 witnesses have power to shut heaven that it rain not. And we see this description as well in Haggai chapter 1, verse 10 and 11. The Lord said, I will withhold the rain, withhold the dew from heaven. Now, I encourage you guys to please read all these verses. Read the Bible. It's heaven and earth will pass away, his words will not pass away. But the 2 witnesses as well will sing praises unto God. Sing, praising, to give thanks unto the Lord, for the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever. Clearly gives us this song in Ezra 3, verse 11. Now, this song is also a reference to Psalm 118, verse 1. I encourage you to read all of Psalm 118, guys. Read the whole thing. I would love to go into it. Talks about the stone, talks about these things. It is the two witnesses. It is their testimony against the nations. Fascinating. For time's sake, we got to move on. Now, if you read Zechariah chapter 3, maybe, guys, any of you are familiar with the courts of heaven, familiar with presenting yourself before God, you will find that Satan has accusations against you. Clearly, that's what we see in Zechariah chapter 3. This is just like Job chapter 1. Now, I encourage you also to read Ezra chapters 4 through 6. Reason being, Zerubbabel and Joshua also run into accusation in the courts of heaven to withhold the building of the house. Okay, this is the same. This is in reference to Zechariah 3, where Joshua has accusations against Satan against him. Okay, now it's represented by a garment. So his filthy garments are removed, and he's given new garments. This obviously is a reference to the garment of the wedding supper. You must have your garment, okay? So within Ezra 4 and 6, it talks about these accusations. And they say, no, we can build a temple because we have the king's decree. All right? So I encourage you to read all that. And those of you that know the courts of heaven, you will have to present yourself to find the accusations against you. You probably don't know what they are, but by presenting yourself, the Lord will show you. The books will be open. The books have been open, guys. So it's very, very important. Now let's move on. We know that the two witnesses, they prophesy 1,260 days. Now again, we have a reference in Ezra chapter 2, verse 64. Amazing! The number of Jews with them when they came to rebuild after the captivity, guys, is 42,360. Now 42,000 is in reference to 42 months. 360 is in reference to 360 days. So, so clearly, these are literal days, okay? But what was coded in the number of people was actually in reference to time. 42 is months. 360 is days. Thus, the 1,260 days is 42 months, or 3.5 years, okay? Amazing. I think that's so cool. Now, let's look at Zerubbabel and Joshua as it relates to the plummet and the stone. Hopefully you've read Zechariah 4 and Zechariah 3. They shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7 eyes of the Lord. So clearly we have with Zerubbabel and Joshua this reference to the 7 spirits of God. Remember, the 7 spirits of God is this menorah, right? Now, we also have the 7 eyes of the Lord. We're looking upon Zerubbabel and Joshua in Ezra chapter 5, verse 5. Okay, so these two clearly have a connection to the 7 spirits of God. Okay, which run to and fro throughout the whole earth. Okay, and in Isaiah 28, judgment will I lay the line, and righteousness to the plummet. So the plummet clearly is in reference to Zerubbabel building the house, and the plummet measures things, measures the house. Okay. Now Joshua is the stone engraved. Zechariah 3:9. The stone which I have laid before Joshua is one stone, shall be 7 eyes. Now the 7 eyes again are the 7 spirits of God. Now what it says is that the one stone which I laid before Joshua has 7 eyes, or 7 sides. Now you may have seen this pattern here, and this is actually built off this stone with 7 sides to it. And through it, we can measure time, we can measure week, we can measure the Sabbath, and measure the years. So as you know in this channel, when we use this pattern to represent the 7 years, the 7 good years, the 7 bad years. Also, this one is a clock, so you can see it's the 3rd day of the week. Okay, so that's the stone with the 7 eyes. And then it says, I will engrave the graving. Now, engrave the graving, when you look and research the stone which is engraved, guys, this brings you to the 2 onyx stones. In Exodus chapter 28, Moses is commanded to get 2 onyx stones. On those 2 onyx stones on each stone they would engrave the on 6 tribes. So on one stone there would be 6 tribes. On the other stone there would be 6 tribes. These 2 onyx stones are in reference to the 2 witnesses. Guys, there's so many types and shadows I could give you. I'm just going to do a few as it relates to Joshua, Zerubbabel, and the 2 olive trees. Okay. Now, Zechariah chapter 6, verse 11, we see Joshua, the high priest. He is crowned. He is crowned to be a king and priest, to build the temple. And as king and priest, the Lord promised this. He has made us kings and priests unto the Lord. Now, king and priest also is the order of Melchizedek. Glory to his name. And I will lay in Zion, this is Isaiah 28, I will lay in Zion a foundation stone, tried, precious cornerstone. We know that's the Lord Jesus Christ. It also is in reference to one of the 2 witnesses being a cornerstone as well. That's tried, that's precious unto the Lord. So here we see the plummet, we see the stone. Now, the reason this is so important is that in Haggai, it tells us the date that the 2 witnesses begin their ministry. That's the reason we're going through all this detail on Zerubbabel and Joshua. Clearly, Zerubbabel and Joshua are the 2 witnesses. And the reason that's important is in Haggai chapter 2, verse 10, 15, and 18, it tells us the date they begin their prophecy. The 24th day of the 9th month. It says, consider this day forward. Okay, now that day is the day they begin their testimony. Okay, so you say, okay, great, Lee, give me another witness to that. Well, sure thing. Hopefully you've read Revelation 11. Let's work through it quickly. Revelation 11, it says, after 1,260 days, they finish their testimony. Then what happens is the beast overcomes them. They are killed and their bodies lay in the street for 3.5 days, right? Then they are resurrected. They are brought to life and they stand on their feet. Okay? Then there's a great voice from heaven that says, come up here. And they come up. And then it says, in the same hour. In the same hour, the 7th angel sounded. Salpizo. So the 7th angel is the 7th trumpet. This is the same as in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 51 and 52, of the last trumpet will sound. Salpizo. It's the same event. It's the mystery of the 7th trumpet. Okay? Sound. So, how do we find that? Well, it's the 1,335th day. 1,335 minus 1,260 is 75. Okay? So if you go ahead from the beginning of the trumpets, you have to add 2 months and 15 days. Add 2 months, 15 days, you will come to the 3rd month and 16th day of 2021. That's the 1,335th day. That is the 7th trumpet, the Salpizo, the last trump. Okay? This is the same point in time that the army is caught up. Okay? 200 million. And again, if you work backwards, 1,263.5 days from this date, 3/16/21, you will come to the 9th day and the 9th month and 25th day of 2017. That day is the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah. And I encourage you to study Hanukkah. You'll see clearly the history of it in the book of Maccabees is the 2 witnesses against the beast. Okay, but the day prior to that is the 24th, the same day. So here we have confirmation of the 9th month, 24th day, 2017. The 2 witnesses will begin their testimony. Why? Because if you go 1,263.5 days into the future, you will come to the 7th trumpet, which is May 24th, 2021. And 2 days after that, there is a major full blood moon, lunar eclipse, on May 26th. So we have confirmation of the 1,035th day. Okay. All this is in the notes. If this is hard to follow, all I can tell you to do is go back over the video, get the notes, and you'll understand these days. I've also charted all this out in the significant prophetic days. Okay. Now, one other thing I want to show you before we wrap it up here, guys, is I've also mapped out for you Daniel's timeline as it relates to these years. So let me show you this here.
Okay, guys, I encourage you to get this document as well. We go into a lot of details. Clearly, the Great Tribulation is 7 years. That's this time period here. Now, we know that the king sits, 2010, 3.5 years. The king sits on his throne from the book of Esther. Then we know the seals are 3.5 years. The 7th seal right here is only a half hour because there's silence heaven half hour after you open the 7th seal. And it is this same time period which we're essentially talking about as the two witnesses begin, okay? And they would continue into the 7th trumpet here. So here we've added up the years for you. Year 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. Now we've also proven this through Daniel's timeline. So in Daniel's timeline is 2,520 days. That's also a cubit, by the way, 25.2. But 1,260 days, halfway point here. Now you'll notice that what we're talking about is there's a slight overlap, guys. So we're talking about the 9th month, 24th day, which actually goes into the time period of the first trumpet. And we're also talking about the 3rd month and 16th day, which actually overlapped into the first bowl. Okay, so that just is what it is. I'm just saying that's what it is. So we've already learned through Daniel's timeline that there are, from the 9th of On, 2015, brings us to the Great Tribulation, September 22nd, 2017. Talk about the daily sacrifice. All these are in Daniel's timeline, which we have shown you. Now, and also in Esther, it tells us when the date the Antichrist is killed. It's the 15th day of the 12th month, 2021. That's the 12th year of the king's reign. So Esther's brought before the king in the 7th year and 10th month. Says that clearly in Esther. That actually lines up very closely with what we're talking about with the 9th month and 24th day of the two witnesses. Okay, so here we have an overlap just so you can see the relationship of the king's timeline, or Daniel's timeline, with the king's timeline in the years. Hope we find that helpful. Okay, so guys, watch and pray that you be kind of worthy to escape all these things and that you would stand before the Son of Man. Amen.